watching the Bulldog Brewhouse podcast.
Hey, it's Steve Grover. It's end of August and coming up on the famous Labor Day weekend. Obviously, it's the last long weekend before we get back to work, and then look forward to holidays like Thanksgiving, Halloween, Remembrance Day, and Christmas. Obviously, I know my holidays, so I have in back of my head, when the next breaks are. That's the only way I get through life every day. But thanks for joining us again for an edition of the Bulldog Brewhouse podcast. It is August 27th. And the weather has changed for the better. Now we have sunny skies and nice evenings. And, I've got a very nice gentleman here, Vikas. You're a cardiologist here in Calgary and also consider you a friend. And also I know you through the biking community.
Yes, yeah.
I actually met you at the Too Cool bike events when they did the Highway 40.
Yeah,
Remember
I
that?
think
That was years ago.
Harley Fat Bob.
Yeah,
and you said you came up and said, "Hey, I've got the same bike," and that's how we started.
Yeah. And I think I was on my Ducati.
You were actually, that's right.
So I always have a Harley somewhere. It's like, it's sort of like, Wizard of Oz, the voice behind the curtain. So I have the Harley behind the curtain, but I ride other bikes. That's right. So I've got my quota.
You got quite a few bikes. So.
Yeah, I got my quota Harley somewhere in my garage.
Right,
and then plus we have the famous Cherry Harley Davidson Grover Law Firm bike that was the bagger of the year 2022. And we just went down to Sturgis recently. And
you went to Sturgis.
Yeah, we were there for 10 days. We had a booth right on Lazar Street. And, we got a lot of gawking and a lot of compliments of the bike. Obviously, it's a beautiful bike with my boy Winston on it. You've seen it. It's a Road Glide, and we did a lot of custom work for it. It's going on 4 years now since we've had that bike.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So how you been?
Good, busy as always, and I think as we were chatting earlier, we moved houses, so that's always it's good and bad because I used vacation to move, which then you're more tired after the vacation, but then most of it's kind of done in 2 weeks, which is kind of nice too.
Okay, so are you settled into your new house?
Yeah, I would say 85-90% of there.
Yeah.
I find the next 10% is probably the hardest because it's going to take a while. We got to reshuffle things, do the whole thing. But
I remember.
I feel like you're in a home because things are kind of settled in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I remember moving like 8 years ago, and it was almost like hell on earth. I'll never do it again unless I have to. Okay.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is we had Winston, and we hadn't had Rosie yet. Roosevelt, the other bulldog, and it was a new build we did, and we still hadn't had a fence between our house and our next door neighbor, who was a new occupant too.
Yeah.
And so we let Winston in the back, and then he was gone, like that. And then where's my dog? And then my wife found him in some other neighborhood with some kids in the playground zone. And I think he was, and we're talking to the breeder. And I think he was trying to find his old house we just left.
Oh, probably.
Yeah, so very interesting.
Yeah, we had 2 dogs as well, and they were a bit confused for the first week or two, what's going on.
I wouldn't recommend them outside the fence yard.
No, so we've got a temporary dog run. We're going to make a more permanent one.
Yeah.
But they're getting more settled in. It's But I think the last 2 weeks at the old house were confusing too, because there's boxes and lots going on. So, but I think now they kind of figured, okay, I guess this is where we're living now.
Exactly. So what kind of dogs you got?
So we got it's an interesting mix. So one is a Newfie Poo is the term. So Newfoundland Poodle mix.
From St. John's.
The breeder was actually in Saskatchewan.
Okay.
But yeah, she's not super big. So he's probably about 80 pounds or so.
Okay.
Then the other one is she's also a mix, so it's I think it's a Maltese with a mini Australian Shepherd. She's about 15 pounds, but totally the boss, right? Just the attitude, everything. She thinks she's like a real Australian Shepherd, so goes after everything. And we actually got her from some sort of breeder in Ponoka, I think. It's close to Red Deer, so they're both very interesting, of course, in their own way.
What's their names?
So Izzy and Thea.
Okay. Yeah. Izzy and Thea. Did the kids
Izzy's
name?
the small one, and Thea's the slightly
bigger. Do the kids name the dogs?
I can't even remember.
Okay.
Probably. I'm sure they had a rolling.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I decided to get. We were actually planning on getting a pug.
Oh, no way.
And then, I read about them, and I read that they just eat all day long. And they don't look like a bunch of eaters, pugs from Men in Black.
But they have like weird nose issues.
So then we ended up getting a bulldog.
Right.
And we named it Winston after Winston Churchill, which makes sense. The Battle of Britain against Nazi Germany. Winston Churchill never had a bulldog. You know that? He had French. He had French poodles, those tall, thin ones.
Oh, interesting.
So that was just a whole mock-up of British Empire with Winston Churchill with a bulldog.
Right.
But and then we just named him Winston Churchill, and then he was getting lonely, so we ended up getting another dog. And
the other one's called
Roosevelt, after Franklin Roosevelt.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And then we left Stalin the black.
I was gonna say you probably don't want the Stalin one.
No, we left him in the gulag.
Or Mussolini or any of those other ones.
We left the Stalin in the gulag.
Yeah, that's fair.
You had to go to the Yalta Convention. Remember how they divide up the world at the Yalta Convention?
Yes. Yeah.
Churchill, Roosevelt, and Stalin were all there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The Allies.
Yes.
So life has been good for you other than moving.
Yeah, I mean, good otherwise. Yeah, kids, family, work, everything's good. I mean, busy, but yeah.
Yeah, but that's life. Life is busy in general.
Yeah.
And
probably better to be busy than the opposite, I think. Yeah.
But we're finally getting some good weather now. I mean, it was raining and cats and dogs, and monsoon season was here in July, even in August.
Absolutely, yeah.
And what are you doing? Are you doing any riding this summer?
I didn't. Partly, I did a little bit. Like I do this. I think
the
this
charity run.
Yeah, so that was good. I've done a few little runs. But the moving was kind of chaotic. Then it rained so much, right? So I'm hoping to get more runs in now than
Well, maybe if you got time in around in September, we should hook up for a run.
Yeah, sounds good.
I was out last night.
Yeah.
I got a new BMW M1000 Single R. It's like a naked sport bike.
So that's cool.
So I took that out for an hour and a half.
Okay. Oh, nice.
But I'm realizing my age. Like my left knee was hurting, my back was hurting. I was like, should I keep this bike or trade in for a sport tour or another Harley?
More comfortable seating is needed.
Exactly. But some of these sport tours are just fast as a sports bike.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, the Avata. Yeah, I mean, obviously I have like a Harley Touring, which is
so what's the model you got for the
Harley?
So
it's a 2019. It's a ultra limited.
Yeah.
And then the Calgary Harley actually modified it because one of their
the Rally and the Rockies.
That's right. It was the number 1 of 3, I guess. Okay. And so they've souped it up quite a bit. So it sounds amazing and it rides really well and super comfortable, right? So it's like a couch.
So you enjoy that bike?
Yeah, I do. I like it. Yeah.
So of all the bikes out there, why did you pick a Harley?
Oh, that's gonna have a historic back to Vikas, a little kid in India story. So. The short story, I guess, would be, so I grew up in India, as you probably know. So I left around age 9.
Yeah.
And motorbikes are very common in India, right?
Yeah, it's a way to get around.
Yeah. So when I was little, I was really into cars and motorbikes. So I remember the street we lived on, even if I couldn't see what was coming, I could tell from the sound whether it was what motorbike, what car, what truck.
Yeah.
And at that time in India, the coolest bike to have was like the Enfield Bullet, which and I just loved the way it sounded, and to me that was really like what a motorbike sounds like. So I think the Harleys kind of capture the motorbike sound in my imagination as to what it should sound like. So that's probably one of the main reasons I've always stuck with Harleys.
Okay.
Because I mean I totally get for there's each company has their own sort of strengths and weaknesses, and but I think to me it's probably the sound and the way it feels. I know there's a vibration, the whole kind of sense, which to me that's what a motorbike is.
Very loud.
Very loud.
Clunky and big. The American freedom.
It's maybe the historic dream of what a motorbike looks like when I was a kid and carrying it on still, right?
Yeah, I mean, and then you started off with a Fat Bob.
I actually had a smaller one before that. I can't even remember.
Like a Harley?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It was, but then I went to the Fat Bob pretty quickly because the smaller ones just didn't have the power. It was even hard to pass in traffic and stuff. The Fat Bob was great. Like I really loved it as a bike, but I really wanted. Initially, I was like, I need to get like a windshield or some sort of covering because I needed more wind protection. But then when I went to, probably the same issue we all have when you go to the motorcycle dealership to look, you're like, oh, that one looks really cool. Like, and that's kind of what happened, I guess.
Okay, so you traded in the Fat Bob for the Ultra Glide?
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
and no turning
it's
back
since? It's
like
5 years now, I guess.
Yeah, 2019, so.
Because I got it in 2020, actually, so it was
Okay. And then, I mean, obviously, you got kids. Do your kids go riding with you because it's big enough?
It's funny. So they used to. Then after I read your book, I had second thoughts about it. Do I really want to carry
a
somebody?
passenger?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I probably haven't since then, actually.
Yeah. I don't ride with a passenger.
Yeah, because I read your book and it kind of made sense to me. I was like, well, there's always some risk to it, right? I mean, you're riding a motorbike, and why put somebody at risk who's has no control over what happens? So I
and
probably
that's the
have
book, Ride Hard, Ride Safe.
Yeah. And my kids are kind of older now too. They're probably not as excited either. You know? So when they were little, I would do little rides around the block and that kind of stuff. But probably not in the last 4 years. I think. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So maybe get some riding in before the end of the season, pretty much. Yeah. Well, at least the pea gravel's gone. The weather's better.
The one thing I find in this bike, because I'm so well protecting, the heater grips, huge windshield, it's a longer riding season than I'd had like in the Fat Bow or the other bike, just because even when it's a bit chilly outside, I'm fine, right? Like,
you got heated grips?
Yeah, I got heated grips.
Heated seat at all?
Not heated seat, but I don't find that's a big deal because there's no wind, because it really blocks well. Because there's a lot of times when I've ridden like October, early November, and there's very few bikes then, right? Because it's just the people who have heater grips and big bikes who are out there.
Oh, they're gone. Like even last night, it was about, like I went down to Brad Creek, and then I went out to sort of like all the way, sort of like maybe to Prentice a little bit. But even on the way out by Brad Creek, there was nobody around. Like at 8 o'clock. But this is also the last week before kids go back to school. So maybe people are gone, or, it is... True. It gets dark early now, but 9 o'clock it's pitch black. So,
Yeah, that's true.
So, what's the thing that you like about riding? Obviously, you're a doctor, and doctors aren't supposed to take any risks, and they see trauma. I know you're a cardiologist.
Yeah.
But what's the other than in India growing up? What was the attraction of being on a bike?
Yeah, it's hard to explain. I would say, right? I mean, partly I think it's the whole sensation of, just feeling very connected to the road, right? Because I find even like cars I like that feel connected, and the whole driving experience is just similar for riding. And I think motorbikes, at least maybe the Harley I have, it's very old school, right? It's there's not too much electronic gadgets. There's not much going on. You feel it's like an actual engine. There's stuff going through. It's I think it's that sensation, and a lot of it probably just hard to explain, right? There's some things you enjoy doing, and it's just one of those things. And and I get made fun of by some of my colleagues of, the donor cycle and all that kind of stuff, right?
Oh, yeah. My sister, well, I don't know if my sister, my sister Mai is a doctor.
I know her, but I don't know her.
Yeah, but then when she's doing her rounds at ER, during the residency period, they're like saying, here comes another donor.
Right.
So
how we ended up riding is interesting. I've always said I wanted to get a motorbike. My wife's always like, no, you can't have a motorbike. So we went to India in 2017 with the family. It's the first time my wife and kids had gone. And she looked around. I used to ride in India as a kid, and she was like, you used to ride a motorbike here? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, you're probably fine to ride in Canada. So she actually got me the Too Cool Motorcycle course as a gift.
Yeah, with Trevor Deck.
So that's how it kind of started, and then kind of went from there.
Okay, that's cool. And what part of India you're from?
South India, Kerala.
Oh, Kerala. Okay, and that's a growing area. It's near Hyderabad.
Lots in the south, right?
There's a lot of tech industry. I've met a lot of East Indians just lately from Kerala. That moved to Canada. Because usually it was a lot of Punjabis.
Historically, that's right.
Not many people from Calcutta. In Canada.
That's true, actually.
There's a lot of Bengalis here from Bangladesh.
But you're right, like in the South Indian population's growing here for sure.
It is, especially. And then, so obviously you're a cardiologist. I mean, what attracted you to medicine of all the careers out there?
It's a good question. So probably started when, I was a very practical kid, so I kind of thought so I did my undergrad in Texas A&M, I actually did chemical engineering. And when I was doing chemical engineering, so this would have been like kind of the late 80s, early 90s. It was a time when a lot of the big firms were like, letting go of senior engineers, and there wasn't a lot of kind of, loyalty. And so you kind of was like, well, if I go down that path, what's the future? And I always kind of liked medicine, and, and I also realized in engineering, I had envisioned, my dad's an engineer, and I envisioned, because he used to like go to the, processing plant, do stuff physically. And I realized that is probably not true anymore. I'd be sitting in front of a computer, really, and to me that was not what I...
so there's no field work involved.
Yes, exactly. So that's why then medicine sort of got into it, and, I like helping people. I like, dealing with people, and also lots of job security. People are not going to stop getting sick. So, and it just kind of, went from there. And I'm glad I switched. So like what I do. Yeah,
so you go to medical school and you go
Yeah.
through 4 years of medical school,
Yes,
and then
yeah.
you decide to specialize.
Yeah.
And why did you pick cardiology?
Yeah. Okay. It's a good. So
That's another question.
Yeah. So I did my med school in Queens.
Yeah.
So actually, when I started in Queens, I really didn't know what to do because I don't really have a lot of family members who are in medicine or anything like
Yeah.
that. So I was looking for a summer project. Actually, one of the orthopedic surgeons said, "Hey, you want to come work for me? I'll give you some money." So I did 2 summers. I actually published initially in one of the orthopedic journals. As I was doing that, I thought, if I'm going to be an orthopedic surgeon, the patients are going to get chest pain. I have to figure out what to do when they do. So I started doing some electives in cardiology, which you can in med school. So some I did in Ontario, and then one I actually did in Calgary. And after I did this, is where I think I actually like cardiology better, mainly because there's cerebral aspect, there's procedures, there's lots of opportunities for doing different things. So I really like that and kind of fit into. And cardiology is one of the few fields where there's a lot of things you can do for diagnosis and treatment. And then just sort of really got into it. Then I really got into the electrical system, which is what I started to do, electrophysiology as a cardiologist, so dealing with electrical problems, so ablations, pacemakers, defibrillators, that kind of stuff. So, and it's a growing field, lots of knowledge. Where we are now compared to 30 years ago is a totally different realm. So it's very exciting. In the 15 years I've been in practice, I probably learned and done 5 or 6 new procedures that didn't exist when I trained, right? So
it's ever growing.
It is, and it's very rewarding, right? Because a lot of things we do actually prevent people from dying suddenly, prevent those kind of things. So
I always thought you became a cardiologist because your favorite holiday was Valentine's Day. No, that's what your wife told me. Is your favorite holiday is Valentine's? Is it true or no?
I don't know. I would say, being a nerdy brown Indian kid, that was probably not a good holiday for me in my youth.
You didn't have a lot of dates back then.
No, I remember in med school, we still joke on it because I keep in touch with some of that. My roommate and 2 other guys on a Valentine's Day, we actually went and saw the wedding singer.
So can I ask you guys a question? Because my dad was a general surgeon, okay? And my dad was originally from India too. He was actually born in Burma, which is now Myanmar, but was part of India before, before the whole India blew up after World War II. But he was a general surgeon, and what was the big, when you're a cardiologist, what was, did you guys celebrate Valentine's Day when you're doing your specialty with your fellow students? Did you or no? I'm just asking.
No, it's a good question. No, to be honest, we don't place any value on Valentine's Day. No. Although now that you bring it up, I feel like there's some marketing thing that we can do.
I think you should set up
it is the only heart holiday.
I think you should set up a fraternity and sorority of cardiologist students.
I like that idea. Yeah, I'm going to have to think more about this. And just to clarify, Steve, as we go into the medical topics, I do have an administrative role in Alberta Health Service and University of Calgary, but today it's just my own views and not representing them.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. I respect that. Yeah. Okay, and then obviously cardiology is very important. Everyone's got a heart,
Yes.
Even if it's a mean one. Sometimes people are mean.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, obviously, cardiology. I don't know if you remember participation. That whole program in Canada. Back in the 80s, how to get everyone active and keep your heart clean and all that stuff. Is that something that the public is generally taking seriously now about taking care of their heart, or is it still kind of like, I'm going to do whatever I want, and if I like French fries and smoking, it is what it is. Do people really understand the ramifications of how important the heart is? Because it's probably one of the most important organs in your body, eh?
Yeah, really important question. And obviously, I'm very biased. I'm a cardiologist, so I would say the heart is the most important organ. But realizing, what you probably do to keep the heart healthy also helps all the other organs, right? It's not like something you do for the heart is going to hurt the brain. Most part, it all helps each other. Going to your question, I would say on a population basis, yes, in terms of tobacco use and smoking, I think the public gets it because we see less of that. But we're seeing vaping coming up, and we don't know where that
Yeah, well, isn't vaping just as bad for the heart as smoking?
I don't think we truly know all the answers yet,
Okay.
right?
What
We
about
also don't know now that marijuana is legal. You're still
Yeah.
smoking stuff. What happens with?
Well, I heard that
Yeah.
you smoke one joint of marijuana, it's like smoking 10 or 20 cigarettes. The nicotine, is that true at all?
I don't know actually.
Yeah, I read that somewhere in the medical.
And part of the
journal.
problem is I don't. We'll probably know in the next few years because it was hard to do studies on things that are not legalized, right? So now that it's legalized, we can actually do studies and get more information. So I suspect we'll have more information coming in the next few years that are really going to be helpful.
Okay.
But even if you go back to the tobacco use, it's really government policies and restricting advertising and things that the government did that probably had a big impact, right? It's and where do we see that going today? It's probably the food industry, right? Is the big one where hard to regulate, right? I mean, people try to limit how big a pop you can get, and even that's not possible.
I know, yeah.
And I've talked to nutritionists and dietitians about this. Even if you put the calorie count, when you go to the menu, a lot of people don't understand what that means, right?
Well, I go to you've ever been to Cheesecake Factory in the U.S.?
In the U.S., oh
you
yeah.
got that menu, and then you look at like the roast beef sandwich and French fries. It's 4,000 calories. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
or the size of the cheesecake you get,
know,
right? It's
yeah.
like this monstrosity.
Well, we still have our business coach in Atlanta. Like going to Atlanta, there's a restaurant in Buckhead. It's a nice area. It's on Peach
Oh, it's a very nice area. I've been there.
Yeah,
it's an amazingly nice area.
Beverly Hills of Atlanta.
Yeah.
But there's a place called Maggiano's. Have you been there? The Italian restaurant.
I've been like 15 years ago.
But there's some stuff on the menu like I like. This cream sauce is like 18,000 calories.
Yes.
No, I'll just have a spaghetti with meatballs, and that's about it. You know what I'm saying? It sort of scares you when you see the calorie count on what's on these foods nowadays.
It is, right? Because it's competing forces, right? Because if you're in the food industry, you're trying to market things to people that taste good. So we joke about the new food groups are salt, sugar, and fat, right? Because that's what's in your food.
Yeah.
And you're right. A lot of it's very high calorie, not that filling, so you eat more. And I would say the biggest thing that's probably affected some of the weight gain and weight management stuff is probably like the newer medications that are coming out, right? Which things like the GLP inhibitors that are people are losing weight, and again they're pretty early on. We'll have to see and we see clearly from that when you lose weight, there's benefits for heart, all kinds of benefits. If you look at a lot of the risk for even heart disease as well as cancer, carrying extra weight is a risk factor. A lot of people don't realize that. Tied to that then is sitting around, not exercising, sedentary sort of lifestyle, right?
So as a cardiologist, if someone's concerned about like long-term, lifespan, especially like when I was growing up, heart was always a men issue. No, it's a women's issue too. We're all humans. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think it was probably under-recognized, right? Because it's probably just as big in women's health, and there's variations. It's not always the same. But I think like a lot of, unfortunately, the medical system, like a lot of other systems, probably didn't look at women as well as they should have. And we're trying to get better. We just started a women's cardiac sort of institute and a clinic and things like that recently. So, I would say it was probably under-recognized and maybe not treated, and still maybe not being recognized and treated as well.
Well, I mean, you and I are pretty much the same age. I mean, growing up in the 80s, I think
I agree.
Public messages for heart for men
and
for women was more breast cancer, cancer awareness.
Yeah, and it's probably needs to change, and how it presents in women can be different, and maybe that's why things were not recognized. But I think you're sort of getting into what do we do for heart lifespan?
Yeah, like obviously, I mean, smoking is like. No one stops smoking. Whatever the government's done, they put these nasty pictures on the cigarettes. Now I think they have to like keep. When they put the cigarettes up there, they have to cover them at the 7-Eleven so kids don't see that stuff. But people are still smoking. I mean, I was just down in Sturgis, and everyone's smoking like a chain, outside, and it never stops. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I think in general, when you look at population numbers, especially in developed countries, it probably is less. I mean, I think the tobacco use is.
Yeah, but let's not worry about us. Like, you look at India and China.
Absolutely.
Half the world's in two countries, and they smoke like crazy.
Absolutely.
The Chinese, like I've been to Shanghai, and it's just smoking.
And I think it kind of goes to show that a lot of this is you probably need regulations from government in place, right? Because just telling people, I think it's sort of a tactic to say, hey, we'll just put this on each individual person. They got to sort it out. And by the way, we're going to have all these things you're going to be attracted to all around you.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
tough, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of your question about heart health and lifespan, it's so you can probably break it into two things, right? So we want what maybe we would call a lifespan and a health span. We want to live a long life, but we want to be healthy for it.
Yeah.
If I told, hey, Steve, you can live to 100, but your last 20 years you're going to be in bed.
Yeah, in a group home.
That's not what you want.
Yeah.
You want maybe to be like, I'm going to die at 100, but maybe till 98, 99, I'm taking care of myself. Maybe I'm riding motorbikes at 80, this kind of stuff, right? And if you look at that as the goal, it probably doesn't matter whether you're looking at heart health or brain health. A lot of the rules are the same. So we'll start off with what's the nature and nurture, right? So the nature part would be the genetics you inherit from your parents matter. I mean, you can't change it.
No, I know.
But if your parents live till 100, there's a good chance you're going to make it, right?
Yeah.
That's not to say that if they died young, you're going to be in trouble. Maybe there are things that can be modified.
Yeah.
So then you look at what are things and health behaviors you can do to change that. And it's the obvious stuff, right? Like
smoking's another.
Smoking's a big one.
The biggest.
Yeah,
like,
smoking is the biggest one where you don't want to do it.
Okay.
So you don't want to be smoking.
I've read studies in the U.S. like even a cigar once a year is not good for men. Is that true at all, or is that just being crazy? Because you go to Caesar's Palace, you've been to Vegas, right?
Yeah.
And they got that cigar room. I don't know if you've been there.
I know what you're talking about.
And I don't even smoke, but I feel like going in there and get a big stogie because I'm in Vegas and smoke a big cigar. But I've read studies where smoking, even on occasion, is not good for you at all.
Yeah.
Or is that too extreme?
It depends on what you mean. Not good for you. Like, I mean, if you smoke one cigar, are you more likely to have a heart attack or something? I think that's probably less clear. But if you have asthma or other problems, of course, it's not good.
I don't have. Yeah.
But I guess the bigger issue is, the more you're exposed to that, are you more likely to pick it up and do it more often, right? Maybe you're going to say, I'm just going to do it once I'm in the cigar room in Vegas. But then it's like, maybe I'll do it, celebrate. I think there's...
The one thing with me, smoking had never attracted me at all. Zero. I just never had this idea of putting this and having my, your fingers get yellow and you get the smell and all, and you get yellow teeth. And even like my dad, he obviously he's a doctor, he just wanted to do that fancy lifestyle, have like a cigar, and he never enjoyed it. Yeah. And even I have a cigar kind of container at home.
Right.
I spent a lot of money on it, and it's never been used. You know what I'm saying? It just looks fancy.
No. Yeah. So I mean, so the big things, So no smoking, no tobacco is probably
number one.
Number one.
Okay.
We'll talk about bad things to avoid than good things to do. So the other one would be alcohol is actually pretty big. Most people don't realize it. I think it's probably because, especially in Western cultures, alcohol is such a part of social interactions.
The lifestyle.
Is a lifestyle. It's part of sort of some of the religion. So
it's very interesting. Donald Trump.
Yeah, he doesn't drink.
I know I heard he drinks 12 Diet Cokes a day. So I don't know if that's good for him at all. The aspartame and I don't know if that affects your heart at all or no.
I'll come back to that one. That's a good question because
right,
I think that's what people. Yeah. So if you look at the Canadian guidelines now, they actually say less than 2 drinks or less a week.
Yeah.
The ideal number is 0, but recognizing that maybe that's not realistic for people. So really the number is, the lower the better.
Yeah.
And there are direct heart effects from having a lot of alcohol. We can get what's called there are cardiomyopathies where your heart muscle gets weak. And sometimes alcohol can be a reason for that. It's hard to diagnose because there's not always you can't do a test to say this is because of alcohol, but we do think that's actually a pretty big problem. So alcohol is the other one.
Now, is there any alcohol that you can drink or something that you should avoid? There's light beer now. I'll have a light beer.
Yeah.
Or should you avoid hard liquor whiskey or scotch? And how they always say there's studies in France every Frenchman has a glass of red wine a day and they live to 2,000 years old or something. There's some guys still living that were back when the dinosaurs were around in France supposedly. So is that good at all, red wine, or
it's a really great question. I think part of this stuff is because if you look at the medical literature and every week from on the news there'll be a new announcement so I think what muddles the picture is so if you look at wine versus, let's say, hard liquor. The people who drink that often are very different people. The people who are going to have, a glass of wine with dinner are probably very different from somebody who's going to a bar and having, a few shots of liquor. So part of the concern is, are the people drinking wine where they, your social well-being helps. Like, the more money you have, you usually have access to better food, exercise. Initially, there was thought that there's things called tannins in the red wine that were very important. People tried to research that. I would say if you look at the overall literature right now, it's probably that there's no alcohol that's really good for you.
Yeah, okay. It doesn't matter if it's a hard
It
whiskey
probably doesn't
or a
matter,
light beer or a nice red wine from Tuscany.
Yeah,
Doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's probably the kind of stuff we'll never be able to tease out.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say, none or minimal.
So like one or two beers a week or
so the
glass of
Canadian
wine.
guidelines say two drinks or less a week is okay, and the reason is because when you look at sort of the risk, it really seems to jump higher after 2.
Yeah.
It's still higher at 2 than 0.
Yeah.
But that's where that number kind of comes from.
Yeah.
When you look at other, we talked a little bit things like, marijuana, illicit drugs, vaping, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's not as clear, and maybe in a few years we'll have more information.
Well, let me ask you, because I've gone through the Mexico Narco series again, because I was bored at home. And my wife just came back from Europe. So cocaine, is that a huge problem for heart?
Yes.
Because that's what I've learned over the years.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Again, with things that are not legal, you can't really study them, right? Because you can't get a
But
but there's lots of cases where, if you take cocaine, you can actually have acute heart attacks from your arteries closing off and things like that. So that's well known. That's not
okay. So cocaine is not good for your heart.
And it could be even just from minimal use.
Yeah.
It's not like chronic thing. Yeah.
It could be once or twice.
It could be that you had it once or twice, or maybe the first time you had it, your body just reacted in a way, or maybe it's the 100th time you had it, your body reacted in a certain way.
So let me ask you about cocaine, because I went through the Narcos thing. So I've never had cocaine in my life. Okay, I'll let you know that. I'm not into drugs, but say you had cocaine when you're 21.
Yeah.
Could there be a long-term implication at 70 having a heart attack time back?
Oh, okay.
Or
I see what you're
or is
saying.
it just there's no correlation?
Yeah. Probably not, and probably we won't know, right? Because that's just too hard to study.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I would probably guess that if you did cocaine once when you're a 20-year-old, probably if you're 70 now, it probably won't change.
All right. But you have to be a habitual cocaine user and stuff.
For some things, but sometimes you can, just the acute consumption can cause reactions in your heart that can give you a heart attack immediately.
Okay.
So we actually have 20-year-olds come in with a heart attack from cocaine use.
So out of interest, what's a trigger thing in cocaine that would cause a heart attack?
So
Why does it differ from alcohol or marijuana?
Yeah, and I'm definitely not an expert in this, but I think that the general way to think of it is there are blood vessels called arteries that supply blood everywhere from the heart, but they also supply the heart itself. So when you take things like cocaine and other drugs, sometimes they can actually cause spasm and constriction because there's so much other hormones and things floating around. So it can actually affect the blood supply immediately and cause a heart attack to happen. People can die suddenly. So those are real things.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously stay away from illicit drugs like cocaine, heroin, hard stuff.
Yeah,
right?
and even the illicit drugs, alcohol.
Well,
I guess I don't know what the term would be, but
I mean, alcohol. It's regulated. I mean, it's out there. People drink no matter what.
No,
I know some people don't drink.
Yeah. The other stuff, you probably wonder things like caffeine. You brought up Diet Coke. Those are less clear. So I would say, as long as it's a reasonable number. If you're having 2 or 3 cups of coffee or 2 or 3 Diet Cokes a day or less, it's probably fine. Especially if that's offsetting you from drinking other stuff that would actually increase, other things like obesity, diabetes. I would say it's probably a good choice then to do that.
So how many cups of coffee should you have a day just to regulate your heart? 2 at the most?
0 is fine, but I would say 2 to 3 probably. I don't think anybody would think it's an issue. When you go over that, then you sort of, I don't know if there's a direct effects, but people would worry that maybe there's some, adverse effects, and if you're drinking 20 cups of coffee and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And probably same thing for diet, pop and that kind of stuff. I mean, if you can drink water, that's probably best. Yeah. But if you're going to drink a diet pop instead of regular pop, that's probably a better option.
Yeah. I just find it interesting, the human's body. It's like we're so consumed with the food industry. When you actually sit back and think about it, you have dogs and I have dogs.
Yeah.
What do they drink every day?
Yeah.
Water.
Yeah.
They're not looking for Diet Coke or put some Splenda or nowadays they have lemonade. You can squirt some lemonade. It's very interesting to think how the rest of the animals on this earth can just drink water, and that's all they need to survive.
It's interesting how our behaviors. When I was single, and even when we first got married, we didn't have kids. I basically just had 3 meals a day. But once we had kids, we started having snacks. So now
yeah.
I snack all the time, and
Yeah.
you know, and snacking is a great way to put on calories.
Yeah,
Right?
I know.
It's just. So yeah, so that covers the bad things. So what are the good things?
Well, we haven't talked about food.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like chips,
Oh wait, that's fair.
burgers,
Yeah.
Kentucky fried, fried
Yeah.
chicken,
I'll-
steak. Like steak's a big one.
Yeah. I'll simplify it in a way because I think food is so complicated.
Yeah.
I think, for most people, I mean, you're not going to be perfect. So I think
Yeah.
if you can eat well 80% of the time, 90%, I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it's also easier for people to stick to that because then you don't feel like I'm restricting something. Because you want something that's sustainable.
Okay, what about eating fried food every day?
Probably not good.
No,
And partly,
okay.
it
Yeah.
also depends on, especially if you're eating out all the time, the same oil gets getting reused too, which is also not good.
Okay.
And that's not just for heart, that's for cancer, other stuff too. It
Okay.
increases the risk.
Okay.
I guess a general rule to follow would be the less processed the food, the better.
Okay, so when we talk about processed food,
yes,
what
yeah.
exactly does that mean?
It's a good question, right?
Yeah,
So,
'cause
and I find that very interesting. So you go
Yeah.
to like, I'll pick on like, whatever, some sort of gym. And you might, find people who are very much about health, yet they're, taking tons of protein powder, right? And you're saying, well, when you take whey protein and you can make it into a powder that can stay on the shelf for years, is that healthy?
Yeah.
My thought would be probably not,
Yeah.
unless you have no other protein source you can use or something like that. So, to me, the closer it is, from the original form, the less processed it is, right? So, if you're eating fruit as fruit, it's probably good.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If
It's
you're eating
like
those,
a
little, those strips that dehydrated that my kids buy, which is really candy at that point, probably
Yeah,
not
yeah.
good.
Okay.
Yeah, in terms of delving into saturated fat in steak versus chicken, I think it's we've gotten a little bit away from it, saying that as you remember when you and I grew up, people said don't eat eggs, don't eat this.
Oh,
and,
yeah, eggs were bad.
yeah. And I think moderate consumption of anything is probably okay.
Okay.
And the more natural or closer to the original form it is probably better. And I think a lot of the country's guidelines are pretty reasonable, in looking at, protein and carbs. And, there's a lot of influence now at taking more and more protein. And, unless you're like really, trying to, weightlift or bodybuild, it's maybe not that relevant. I think, but having a minimum amount of everything is good.
Well, they say, like, doctors have told me if you're serious about protein, you should eat your weight in grams in protein every day.
Yeah.
So
So
if you weigh 150 pounds,
Yeah.
you'd have at least 150 grams of protein a day. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's modified. I think they want you to eat in your lean body mass, not your
Yeah.
actual weight.
Okay.
But regardless, that's actually a lot more than what the guidelines say. So I don't think we truly know if that is good or bad.
Okay.
So the people who say that will say, well, the guidelines are just trying to prevent a protein deficiency. They're giving you the minimum amount, whereas we're thinking this is the best amount.
So,
Maybe.
like,
I don't think we
so
truly know that.
All these
Yeah.
protein guidelines are out there. Like, are people that you see just eating French fries and drinking
Yeah.
Coke all day long in your clinic, like,
Yeah.
and Twizzlers licorice?
Yeah.
No, I mean, like,
It's a good question, right? So
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
that's
what
why that's why I'm concerned about telling people to restrict anything. Because let's say you say, okay, I'm going to be a vegan.
Yeah.
You could be a vegan as long as you're eating things well and balancing.
Mm-hmm.
But if your definition of vegan is meaning I'm going to drink pop and eat donuts, yeah, that's vegan, but that's not what
that's
we were
not very
getting at,
healthy.
right?
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
not implying that any one diet is better than the other, but
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
most of us would say, the less processed, the more balanced is probably better. I mean, certainly if you have some allergies or restrictions, it's a bit more, religious reasons why you can't. But you do have to think about how you gain some of those things, right? Like, so, some micronutrients and things maybe you don't get in certain foods. So if you can't eat the foods that get it, how do you supplement or get that? So those are all things to think about. I think it's, the one thing I find is when people are looking at weight management and health, the question they always ask for is, what can I eat more of or do more of? When a lot of times the answer is simply just eat less and do more activity. Right?
Yeah, and I'm gonna let you know. I go into a grocery store,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I look and like I swear 95% of the stuff I shouldn't buy.
Yeah, you got to stay in the outer lane, man.
Whatever.
Don't go inner. Never go inner.
Well, I won't mention where I go.
Yeah.
It's one of the big groceries companies, and you got all the nice vegetables.
Yeah.
But then they worry, well, don't eat all these vegetables because they're pesticide, sprayed or something like that.
Yeah.
And then you go to the chip section, and they got like 10,000 chips, and then they got cookies, and then they got processed all this and that, and like. At the end of the day, there's not much. There's 90%. Like, life is boring. If you're just not eating any of that stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I can address that for sure. So I mean, I think your point is valid, right? So people are like, well, I know I'm confused because should I buy organic because then there's no pesticides and all this. I actually think it's probably not that big a deal, right? If you're eating, vegetables and fruits, wash it really well, and that's probably a better choice than saying I'm going to avoid fruits and vegetables because I'm worried about pesticides. Instead, I'm going to eat potato chips because for all you know, those potato chips also had pesticides when they made it. So I think staying to the outside of the grocery store in the outer area is usually a pretty good idea. And again, I don't think you need to aim for perfection, right? Because that's always hard. So I
think you go crazy.
Yeah.
Like, even there's days, like, months that I've gone through, like, I'm gonna lose a weight. I still need that cheat day where I can have ice cream and pizza on a Saturday.
Agreed.
You know what I'm saying?
That's why I kind of like that. Aim for eating reasonably well 80 to 90% of the time. I'm gonna come back to the boring comment. I think that's actually a really important comment because
food is boring. It is.
You actually have to eat boring to be healthy.
I know, and like, I'll give you an example. I went to get my annual eye test today from my optometrist. My eyes are good. I won't tell you what my prescription is, but then I go to the food court, and really, I mean, there's really nothing like pure healthy that I should be eating there. I won't mention vendors there. You know what I'm saying? And I ended up eating something because I had to have lunch.
Yeah. No, I think. You probably have to, plan your meals a little bit, and you probably have to eat, for the most part, some of the similar things over and over, right? Because, then it's kind of healthy because you've got a routine, and you kind of have to accept that. So if you kind of say, no, I want every meal to be exciting, it's going to be hard to eat healthy, and that's the reality.
Well, but the problem is the society wants to make food sexy and exciting. Like, you watch a football game. It's all food commercials, and they have the beautiful pizza with the cheese. And all of a sudden, I'm calling pizza. I'm like, okay. And then you see the beer commercial. I ran out of beer. I don't even feel like a beer. I just go get a beer. You know what I'm saying? And then you got the chips, and then you get the chips and you eat the whole bag of chips before you know it. I think the problem with the society, I don't know what you think. I think it's completely food industry based. The whole advertising.
I think a lot of it is, right? I mean, I think, and that's why we can learn from the tobacco industry. Until there were government regulations, it was hard to restrict things, right? And what I found in the food commercials is the people eating that unhealthy stuff look very healthy. Which also is deceptive.
Well, like, I won't mention a soda pop, but they always have these nice summer commercials where girls are on the beach with the dudes and they're playing volleyball.
And they're all like
drinking like 50 grams of
like
soda.
5% body fat. And
I know, and like, okay, I guess I can look sexy doing that too.
It's not working. I tried so hard.
Yeah. I mean, they don't have like big obese people in Pizza Hut, like pizza commercials and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
And we don't need to get, obviously we're not city planners, but if you look at especially in the U.S. or area where they call food deserts, right, where there's no real grocery store, there's no access to so all that stuff matters, like food planning, government involvement, and I think all those things help. And I think it's almost a bit not fair to put this on each individual, saying, oh, this is just your problem, which is not, right? It's a very complex problem.
Yeah, well, you go, I mean, you just go down McLeod Trail and 80% of the stores are food industry.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
And you're just tempted to go in and like, okay, I'm going to eat this stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Right? Yeah.
So is anything going to come with the government thing regulated about that, or is it just up to you to control your eating habits?
I mean, ideally, I think, having some government restriction is important because I don't think it's a fair fight in a way, right? Because I don't think people totally understand the implications. But the problem is, who's lobbying for that, right? Like,
nobody. Well, like, the other thing is energy drinks. Like, I don't have a problem with energy drinks, but I tried to drink them, and I was like, it wasn't good for. I just didn't feel comfortable, so I stopped drinking it.
Yeah, and the problem. I mean, there's tons of caffeine and sugar in some of them too. Right? The same issue comes from a lot of supplement industry stuff too, because it's not regulated. So even if you think you're buying protein powder, there might be other stuff in there because they're not even made in Canada or they're in another country. There might be there's some studies showing a lot of them have like lead and things like in them. So that's why even if you're trying to do something that you think is the right thing, it might not be, right?
Yeah,
And that's why I think you just got to stay to, what's maybe the most natural kind of food I can get and try to stick to it as much as you can.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because like I went to Sturgis and we stop at a gas station, and like I look around, the only thing I can have that's healthy is a banana, and that's my lunch. Like, give me a break, you know.
Yeah, I went on a school trip with one of my kids,
Yeah.
and we was in Ontario, and
Yeah.
it was kind of, obviously they have a budget, but basically the meals were like, cereal, high sugar cereal,
Yeah.
Lots of sugary, for lunch and dinner, the option was one pot with sugar and the other pot with sugar, different color.
Yeah.
And it was either, pizza, spaghetti, or chicken fingers.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, like when we stay in the hotel in Sturgis, they had like everyone has free breakfast now.
Yeah.
The only thing healthy I found was oatmeal. So I had oatmeal in the morning, put some walnuts and almonds on it, and brown sugar, and that's all I eat for the breakfast.
It is, yeah. It is, and I think the food, it's a big problem, right? Because if you look at weight gain or weight loss, that's in the kitchen, not in the gym, right?
So can I ask you a question then? I mean, we see big gulps and super gulps, and like you go to a shop and they'll have double extra fries.
Yeah.
Have you seen an increase in cardiology problems in society in North America or in Canada in general because of the food? Like, it's not just order a pizza, order like the biggest pizza, and we'll give you a second one for free.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I would say it's not directly tied to food, but it does indirectly tie to, like things like obesity and diabetes.
Yeah.
So if you look at, what's going to get you when you're older, it's obviously things like heart disease, stroke, and cancer.
Yeah.
But you could probably start adding into that things like diabetes and dementia, not directly, but they have other complications.
Yeah.
So, all these things play a role. If you have, diabetes, high blood pressure, all those things increase the risk of having heart disease.
Well, I mean, if you're overweight, you could get diabetes, and then diabetes complications is having a heart attack. Wouldn't you
Exactly.
agree? So
it could be kidney problems. Yeah,
it all runs in a row, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and even salt there's so much salt, and salt increases blood pressure.
Yeah.
There's some thoughts that if you decrease the amount of salt, you could totally change the amount of strokes that happen. There's all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah.
And so you mentioned strokes. Is that tied in with the heart condition, taking care of your heart and all that stuff, or is that it?
Yeah, they're probably, a lot of that ties together. So if you think of heart attack as being a blood supply problem to the heart or a problem with the heart muscle, stroke is a similar problem to the brain. A lot of overlap in all those things, and even cancer with the things that benefit one will benefit the other in terms of lifestyle and things like that. So if you do have things like diabetes, high blood pressure, it's really important you do control them, and because that actually helps. It makes a big difference. And the other big lifestyle area is sort of exercise, which is really important, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of society guidelines suggest doing 150 or 180 minutes of exercise in a week, and I think it's probably good to split it with some resistance and what people call cardio, like those kind of things. And and to be honest, there's an idea to stop calling it that and just call it movement. I think just moving and doing things is what's important. And whether it's you're vacuuming at home or putting dishes away, as long as you're moving and doing things, there's probably a benefit, right?
Like like doing laundry. So we have our laundry on the main floor, and so when I do laundry, I'm running up and down. So that's probably good movement for me to keep my heart strong.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you think of things like smoking as decreasing your lifespan, things like exercise, make it longer. Now, how much longer things is hard to study. But it also is protective in that it maybe prevents you from getting things like diabetes and high blood pressure and things like that as well.
Yeah.
So I would say, those are the good things you want to do more of. The other last one is a little bit less clear to people. So the other is actually having good social supports and interaction. There are some, data that's looked at long-term follow-up of people, and if you're at the age 50, one of the biggest predictors of whether you're going to make it to 80 is having a good social connection and support. It might be because maybe you're just more engaged, you're doing things with other people, or it might be that when you have those support, your wife says, "Hey, Steve, your blood pressure's a bit high, you got to go see your doctor, get that treated." Whereas if you didn't have that person, maybe nobody says that. Right? So that's actually another big one to have as well. And that probably ties into being, kind of happiness and, networking and, having, connections, right? So, and supports and things like that.
So I don't know if you've seen that social media video with Trump. He has his theory to retires to expire. and he tells a story about this big banker,
Right.
and he had all these friends, and then he retired, and then he Donald, like, I guess Donald's friends with everybody, you know. He calls him out of the blue, hey, how's it going on? You're the only friend I still have, Donald. No one calls me back. And so he took him out for lunch, and then he's all depressed, and then a year later he drops dead of a heart attack. So I keep on showing my wife this video, like, I'm not going to retire, which makes sense. But is it true that people that get retired, you know, like, their life just goes down the toilet? Because it does make sense. Like, you know, sometimes your social skills circle is built around your work. You understand? Like, I would have never met you if I wasn't a lawyer and I was involved in motorcycling, correct? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So have you seen a decrease where people retire and their heart goes bad, or they just unfortunately pass on?
Yeah, I don't think we know, right? And partly what makes it really hard to study is all these illnesses usually happen as you get older. Mm-hmm. Now, it might be that you stop working because you're having medical problems. So then it makes total sense that bad things happen because you're already cutting down on work. Mm-hmm. But your question is very valid because there's a lot of people who are professionals who part of their social connection is the work, and you know, and it's also a big identity for a lot of people, right?
Well, I mean, like my dad said, listen, everyone has to have a job in life. You know, there's nothing wrong with anyone's job. I mean, you're a lawyer and you're a doctor, but you know, the person that works in the factory, those widgets would never be made if they don't have a job, and the housekeeping so everyone's job's important. Yeah. But even someone working in a factory, you know, they're retired. Those boys on the line aren't going to go for beers with them on a Friday.
That's right. So there's probably some social stuff they're doing. And I mean, I'm not advocating everybody sort of work forever. But the whole idea of vacation and retirement is actually a pretty new idea, right? So if you think about it, like 300 years ago, if you asked a farmer, you know, when are you going on vacation and when are you retiring, they'd be like, what are you talking about?
Well, like, imagine the caveman, like, so honey, when are you going to stop? When are you staying home with me and the kids? Like, I think he'd get like a bang.
No, but I think, you know, no, I don't know if that's true, and I don't know if we'll ever know, but I mean, I see your point that, you know, maybe when you retire, depending on, maybe you lose a lot of your social support and network, right? And maybe that is an issue for some people.
Well, so, okay, give you an example. I retire, okay? I'm not coming to work. I may not keep in touch with you. I definitely, you know, I won't have like the social thing here in the office or doing stuff. So what, am I going to go to the gym? Hang out with my dogs, and then eventually they're going to get sick of me like my wife and kick me out and send me back to work.
No, but it depends on your priorities, right, Steve? So let's say you have a bunch of grandkids and you want to spend more time with them, and maybe that.
Yeah, but how much time can you spend with the grandkids? Like, you know,
I don't have grandkids yet.
I know, but like, I mean, you know, your kids are like, your son's a teenager, right?
Yeah, he's 16. My daughter's 20.
Does he want to spend every weekend moment with dad? No. Like, I remember growing up, like, Dad, leave me alone. I want to go meet some girls, or I want to go to 7-Eleven, have a Slurpee. Just, I don't want to hang out with you. Like, you know, Dad's stuff with me was going on the weekends, going to Banff. They had a place in the mountains, or him and I going for a long drive, or going on a holiday. But it wasn't like, you know, he was running home, Steve, let's do Lego and let's do this.
I think it's very individual, because in my role, I deal with a lot of people, you know, especially people who are, you know, going close to retirement. Some are retiring. And I would say there's almost like two sets of people, right? There's some who they're like, hey, once I hit this age, I'm done. I'm leaving. I'm doing my thing with my family. I'm going to travel. And then there are others where work is such a big part of them. You know, they're in their 70s and still, you know.
Well, look at like you know, there's one billionaire in Vancouver, in West Coast. I won't mention, but he's in his 90s and he still comes to the office 5 days a week.
So I think it's very variable, right? I think so, but I don't think we can definitely say that, you know, retiring or not retiring is good for your health. I think we just don't know.
All right. So there hasn't been any follow studies at all.
No, and the problem is it'll be so complicated because you're getting older as well, right? You know, it's,
but there is a study of the British Medical Journal I saw.
Okay.
And they correlated early on of dementia to retirement because you're not using your brain anymore. Does it make sense? Because they said the brain is like a muscle. Like if you don't go to the gym and work your bicep, it's going to get small again.
The problem with those kind of studies is because my question would be, did you actually retire early because there was something happening already, right? And you kind of thought, okay, I'm not as sharp as I used to be. Maybe people are commenting. So I think it's hard to know. I don't think we can definitely say so. If you want to work, keep working. If you want to retire, go for it.
Okay. All right. Okay. So obviously, you know, good things are exercise. Trying, you know. No one's going to be perfect in their diet, but just do stuff in moderation. Have a pizza once a week, maybe.
And accept that it'll be a little bit boring, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, life, like I feed my dogs, and they're like
Same thing every
they're
day.
so happy
Same
to
thing
get
every
their
day.
food.
Yeah,
They,
yeah, that's right. Same thing every day.
Their food looks boring. It's like it's water and dog food, and it's like they go crazy. Like, but I think the thing is I think our whole society, the Western society, has just like, here's all these ads, and you got to go out and you got to go to this restaurant.
And it's not even Western anymore, right? Even in developing countries, they have struggling with weight and stuff because there's so much processed, easily accessible food, very high caloric.
Like in India and in China. Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously, try and do the best you can and keep your heart healthy. Hey?
And I think surround yourself with things that are, because the whole willpower thing doesn't work, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're in the grocery store, buy the healthy things because that's what's in your home. That's what you're going to eat. Mm-hmm. So you don't have easy access to the other stuff. Mm-hmm. Try to really, have exercise and the good things you do as part of like your disciplined plan, not just when you feel inspired, right? If you say I'm just going to work out when I feel inspired and I'm going to, it doesn't work. Maybe it's like, okay, every Thursday evening I'm going to do this, and it has to be a priority.
How about walking in the morning? Like today I didn't go to the gym. I got up early. I walked for an hour, and that's
I think walking's great, right? Because the nice thing about walking is you're out, you're doing stuff, it burns energy, burns some calories. But then if you do other more intense workouts, it doesn't cut into that because you're not as tired. So if you look at a lot of bodybuilders and stuff, a lot of them walk a lot. It's a nice way to burn calories and you're doing something, right? Yeah.
Well, I know a lawyer in LA.
And it's something that almost most people can do.
But walking's also good for the mind because I know a lawyer in LA, and he said his whole career changed when he started walking in the morning. It was quiet time just to relax his brain.
It is, yeah. And now walking's like a biking, or there's the whole rucking idea, right? So you carry your weight and you're...
Okay.
So, walking is good, for sure.
All right. Okay. And obviously, any plans for the long weekend coming up, or just still settling in?
I got to work some of it, I think. But otherwise, spend some time with the family. Work and family.
And then so everyone's talking about AI. Okay?
Yes.
Artificial intelligence, which I don't really agree with. I think there's a benefit to it. But so medicine and cardiologists, is there a threat of AI taking your jobs?
Yes and no. To some extent, in the long run, there probably will be. I think it could be good depending on how it's used, right? So there's two ways to look at it. One is, a lot of what we're dealing with right now is the language models, right? And they're helpful in many ways. What we really need is more predictive AI, right? So just think about this. So imagine, Steve, as you probably know now, like in our province, all our health records are in one database, right? But most people, like if you come and see me in clinic, I can look at some of your records that I think is relevant. But imagine if you had an AI that could look at every single data you have in there and start making predictions, right? So it might start seeing patterns that I could never see. Maybe it says, when people go to their family doctor and this blood count is slightly elevated when they're 40, means they're going to have heart disease at 50. Well, I could never figure that out, right? So there's stuff like that might come out where it could make connections that a human would never be able to. Then there's the whole idea of can it provide treatment and things like that. I think eventually it'll be an aid, but you'll always need probably some supervision from a human, at least in the short term, right? Same issue with the Tesla cars. Like if you get into an accident, who do you blame? Do you blame Tesla or the person who was supposed to be sitting
Tesla,
there, right?
because they got more money.
But the reality is they want somebody to be responsible and
exactly.
So I think a lot of jobs will get replaced in any area, right? But a lot of the hands-on stuff, because I do a lot of procedures and things like that, probably will take a while, right? Because I always tell my kids the safest job right now is being a plumber. Like, AI's not going to come do your plumbing for you for a long time, right?
Or an electrician.
So I think if it's stuff where you're interacting, you're creating things, you're actually doing hands-on stuff, you're probably safer. Some of my colleagues who do a lot of interpretation of imaging and tests, they may be more at risk.
Radiologists.
That's
what I've heard, that their jobs could be.
And it might be that it's not that they're totally gone, but maybe they're overreading things that are read by AI, that kind of stuff, right?
Okay.
So, it's a good question, right? Because that's going to change the job market.
Well, I don't know how much, but, sometimes, AI is AI, but,
Is there a lawyer AI coming? Because they're getting rid of like some of the entry-level stuff,
I guess so. Lawyer AI, but, I don't know. I still want to talk to a real human being if I hired a lawyer or doctor,
Yes. Agree.
Okay, great. All right. Well, yeah, thank you for showing up on the podcast. And,
Yeah, no,
you
thanks
know,
for having me.
Hope you know you get settled finally in your house and enjoy
Thank you.
the fall, and all the best to you and your family and your wife.
Awesome,
and,
thanks.
And we want to thank you
Oh,
by
wow.
giving you this basket
That's very kind of you.
from Winston and Roosevelt. They put that together last night. They had their little paws.
Cool, thank you.
and we put a nice gift card from a cookie company in there.
Nice.
So it's really
very
good
relevant to our discussion.
Yeah, very good for your heart. I won't
think
mention
it's
the company because I don't want to endorse
I
anybody.
think it's a company my kids like. So.
Yeah,
I
they
can
got the big
recognize it. Yes.
So I don't know
Well, thanks
how.
a lot, Steve.
Well, thank you so much,
Thank you.
Vikas.
Yeah, and thank you,
And we'll-
David, for all the.
And then we should hook up in this fall for a little ride and
Yeah,
go
sounds
around,
good.
okay?
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
Well, thank you so much, and everybody, thank you for tuning in for another podcast by the Bulldog Brewhouse podcast. And you know, remember, regarding your heart, it's probably the most important organ, one of the most important organs in your body. And you know, try and eat well in moderation and keep healthy. And hopefully, we'll see you out on the road. And take care. Bye bye.